Retire at 40. Work optional by 35. Financial freedom by 32. The narrative is everywhere. On podcasts, on YouTube, on Instagram. Someone in their 20s quit their corporate job. Now, they live off investment returns. They work maybe 10 hours a week on passion projects. They travel. They're free. And it sounds possible. It sounds achievable. If they can do it, you can do it. Except the people telling the story are the ones for whom it worked. You're not hearing from the 99 people who tried and couldn't sustain it. You're hearing from the one person who made it work and is now selling a course about it. The narrative of early retirement and financial freedom has become so dominant in personal finance that questioning it feels like admitting defeat. Like you're not ambitious enough, not disciplined enough, not smart enough. But here's what the narrative doesn't tell you. Retiring at 40 is not a myth because it's impossible. It's a myth because the costs and constraints of actually doing it are so different from how they're portrayed that most people who pursue it either never achieve it or achieve it and then discover it doesn't work the way they thought. Today, we're going to look at why early retirement is much harder than the narrative suggests and what the people selling the dream are not telling you. The math that looks good on spreadsheets. The early retirement narrative is built on a specific mathematical model. You need roughly 25 times your annual expenses in invested assets. At a 4% withdrawal rate, those assets produce income equal to your annual expenses. So if your annual expenses are $40,000, you need $1 million in invested assets. If you can save $50,000 annually, you reach 1 million in 20 years. But if you increase income to 100,000 annually and keep expenses at 40,000, you're saving 60,000 per year. You reach 1 million in about 16 to 17 years. If you're very aggressive, earn 150,000, spend 30,000, save 120,000, you reach 1 million in about 8 years. This is the math that produces the retire at 40 narrative. And the math is technically correct. The problem is not the math. The problem is the assumptions underneath the math and what happens when reality diverges from those assumptions. The first hidden cost: healthcare before Medicare. If you retire at 40, you have 25 years before Medicare eligibility at 65. 25 years of health insurance that you're purchasing privately, not through an employer, not through a group plan, individually. Current individual market health insurance premiums for someone in their 40s are typically $400 to $800 monthly, depending on the state, age, and plan. By the time you're 55, that same coverage is $1,400 to $2,200 monthly. For someone aging into the older cohort, over 25 years, even accounting for some years being lower and some being higher, you're looking at $150,000 to $300,000 in health insurance premiums alone. Most early retirement calculators either underestimate this or exclude it entirely. They budget $500 monthly for healthcare. The reality is closer to $800 to $900. That difference, $300 to $400 monthly over 25 years, is $125,000 to $150,000 you didn't budget for. The second hidden cost: sequence of returns risk. The 4% withdrawal rule assumes an average return over a long period, but returns are not average. Some years are up, some years are down. If you retire at 40 and the first 5 years of your retirement see market declines, you have a problem. You're withdrawing 4% annually from a shrinking portfolio. You're not just losing money to the decline, you're withdrawing from it while it's declined, which means you're selling at the worst time. Over a 30-year retirement period starting in a down market, you might run out of money before you reach 60. The 4% rule was based on 30-year historical periods. It had a 95% success rate, meaning 5% of historical 30-year periods ended in portfolio depletion. For a 40-year retirement starting at 40, the success rate is lower. For a 50-year retirement, lower still. And the research assumes you stay invested. If you panic and sell in a major downturn, which many people do, the outcomes get worse. Most early retirement calculations don't account for this dynamically. They assume average returns and smooth withdrawals. They don't account for the year you retire and being a bear market and having to withdraw from your shrinking portfolio for 5 years while waiting for recovery. The third hidden cost: what your lifestyle actually costs. Here's where the calculation usually breaks down most severely. Early retirement calculators budget based on current spending. You're currently spending $40,000 annually, so you budget $40,000 for retirement. But retirement spending is not the same as working age spending. You're at home more, things that needed to be outsourced get done yourself, but other things change. Travel becomes more appealing when you have unlimited time. Experiences become pursuits. Hobbies that required minimal investment now consume time and money. Your home gets more use. You notice things that need fixing. Projects that you deferred while working become relevant. Social spending often increases. Dinners, activities, experiences with friends who you now have time to see. The research on retirement spending shows that early retirement years are often more expensive than working years because you're finally doing all the things you deferred. The person retiring at 40 with $40,000 annual expenses discovers that their actual spending is $60,000. That's a 50% gap from assumption. At $50,000 of actual spending, you need $1.25 million in invested assets, not $1 million. The retirement that looked achievable in 10 more years of savings is now 7 more years away. The fourth hidden cost: the mental health dimension. The narrative rarely mentions what actually happens to people when they stop working. Work provides structure. Work provides identity. Work provides community. Work provides purpose. For knowledge workers especially, significant parts of identity are wrapped up in what they do professionally. Retiring at 40 means removing all of that at an age where you still have decades of productive life ahead. Some people genuinely thrive in retirement. They have hobbies, projects, relationships that fill the time. Many people struggle. They experience identity loss. They struggle with lack of structure. They battle depression. The financial independence narrative doesn't talk about this because it's not quantifiable, but it's real. The person who retires at 40 and discovers that they hate not working and their identity relied on their career faces a difficult choice: go back to work at a lower level, or stay retired and struggle. Either way, the narrative that early retirement is freedom becomes more complicated. Freedom from work is not the same as freedom from everything. The things work provided were real, even if they felt constraining. The fifth hidden cost: inflation and sequence assumptions. The withdrawal rates are based on historical average inflation, but inflation is not static. During high inflation periods, your 4% withdrawal doesn't keep pace with rising costs. If inflation runs 5 to 6% and you're withdrawing 4%, you're losing purchasing power every year. Most early retirement models assume you adjust withdrawals annually for inflation, but the purchasing power still lags in high inflation years. Additionally, your expenses don't inflate evenly. Healthcare inflates faster. Housing inflates faster. The things that become important in retirement often inflate faster than general inflation. The 4% rule assumed 3% inflation on average. Current inflation has been volatile. Retirement stretching 40 to 50 years encounters multiple inflation regimes. The spreadsheet that works under 3% inflation might not work under 5%. The sixth hidden cost: social and relational pressure. You retire early. Your peers are still working. There's an awkwardness in this. You're free. They're not. Some relationships shift. The peer group that made sense when you were all working diverges when you're not working and they are. Additionally, social pressure to maintain lifestyle increases when you're not working. You have unlimited time and limited income. The contrast becomes stark. The working person can justify spending on certain things because I earned it. The retired person at 40 struggles with the same justification. Over time, this social pressure to maintain an appearance of stability and success, while living on a fixed and limited income creates stress. What actually works instead of the fantasy? If you want genuine freedom from financial stress, the path is different from the early retirement narrative. First, build income that exceeds expenses significantly. This is more reliable than trying to build a specific net worth. Someone earning $150,000 and spending $50,000 is genuinely freer than someone with $1 million invested and living on $40,000. The income earner has flexibility. The retiree has constraints. Second, build career capital that allows optionality. Don't quit your job and retire. Build skills and reputation that let you work part-time, let you choose projects, let you step back without being fully out. Third, extend your working life moderately rather than expecting to stop at 40. Work until 50 or 55 in a role you enjoy. Build flexibility into it. Reduce hours. Take sabbaticals. The mental health, identity, and income benefits of working longer in a role you've engineered for flexibility exceed the benefits of stopping entirely at 40. Fourth, build resilience into your financial life. $1 million in assets with $40,000 annual expenses is fragile if anything goes wrong. $1.5 million with $50,000 in flexible spending and supplementary income options is resilient. Fifth, don't let the narrative drive the decision. Just because early retirement is portrayed as possible and desirable doesn't mean it's right for you. The financial freedom narrative is seductive because it promises escape. Escape from the constraint of needing income. Escape from the obligation of work. And escape is genuinely appealing to people who are stressed by their jobs. But the early retirement version of escape, where you stop working at 40 and live indefinitely on investment returns, is far less achievable and far less satisfying than the narrative suggests. The people who make it work are often the ones who had advantages the narrative didn't mention: high income, no dependence, access to healthcare through other means, strong psychological resilience to identity loss. For most people, the path to genuine financial freedom is not early retirement. It's building income that significantly exceeds expenses. It's developing career optionality, so work is a choice rather than an obligation. It's extending your working life slightly in a role that doesn't feel like work anymore. This is not as sexy as retire at 40. It doesn't sell courses. It doesn't inspire Instagram posts. But it works. It's achievable, and it produces genuine freedom rather than the fragile fantasy of living forever on withdrawn investment returns. The early retirement dream is a myth. Not because it's impossible. It's a myth because most people pursuing it discover that the costs they didn't budget for, the risks they didn't model, and the reality of what freedom actually requires make it far more complicated than the narrative. Understand what freedom actually costs before you organize your entire financial life around achieving it.